Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the answer to India's rise or its limitations is not just politics or policy, but geography itself? Because before you can understand a country's power, you must understand its shape, its borders, its rivers, its mountains, its curves, and its potential. Welcome to Conflict and Context, where we decode the world's toughest dilemmas through the lens of history, power, and strategy. And today, we begin with one of the oldest civilizations, yet one of the youngest modern states, India. Let's zoom out first. See that massive landmass, Eurasia? It is the power stage of history, the supercontinent where empires rose and fell, where civilizations collided, where every great game was played. At the heart of it, four population giants emerged: China, India, Europe, and the Middle East. Now look again. These are not just cultural zones. They are shaped by rivers, deserts, mountain walls, and trade routes. And in this vast chessboard of geography, India stands oddly exposed. Unlike China, which is protected by a fortress of deserts, mountains, and unified river system, India is an open plain, the Indo-Gangetic belt, flat, fertile, and vulnerable. To the north, the Himalayas, the only real barrier. To the west, the Thar Desert, leading straight into the Pakistan. To the east, dense jungles and fractured hills, home to India's most neglected frontiers. And to the south, a vast coastline open to Indian Ocean, a blessing but also a gateway to global threats. Throughout history, this geography shaped a brutal reality. India was not a fortress, India was a corridor. From Alexander to the Mughals, from Ghazni to the British, invaders did not just conquer India, they entered it. Through the Khyber Pass, through Sindh, through Bengal. While China remained mostly intact, India was fractured, invaded, and reassembled again and again. The Great Wall was built to keep invaders out. India had no such wall, only rivers, forests, and hope. This is the start of India's geographical dilemma, an open geography with no easy way to unify, defend, or project power. Think about this. In over 5,000 years of history, India was really united under one rule. The Mauryas, the Mughals, the British, just three pan-Indian empires. Compare that to China, where dynasties ruled for millennia with centralized authority thanks to geography that allowed cohesion. India's geography encouraged diversity but not unity. It gave birth to many languages, many kingdoms, many gods, but few empires. So the question is, can a country so fragmented by nature rise as a great power by design? And if it does, what kind of power would India be? Continental, like Russia or China, or maritime, like Britain or Japan? The answer is complicated. But geography does not lie. It sets the stage. And so far, India has been playing defense. In the next act, we will explore how these geographical disadvantages shape India's military psychology, its political fragmentation, and its continued vulnerability. But here's the opening truth. Geography is India's oldest enemy and its greatest teacher. If India's geography made it vulnerable to invasions, its history reveals the lasting fractures those invasions left behind. For thousands of years, India's open northern frontier was not just a gateway, it was a revolving door. From the Aryans to the Mughals, waves of conquerors surged through the Khyber Pass not just to raid, but to settle, rule, and reshape. Each invader did not just take land, they layered new languages, religions, and cultures on top of what already existed. This constant layering made India incredibly diverse, yes, but also deeply fragmented. And that fragmentation became part of India's internal identity. Not a single civilization, but a continent of civilizations, a subcontinent of rival kingdoms, tribal loyalties, linguistic zones, and spiritual philosophies. all stacked side by side but really united for long. Kaplan writes, India's physical unity belies its human complexity. Unlike the centralized empires of China or the cohesive unity of Japan, India was always a mosaic under pressure. This diversity made India beautiful but vulnerable. Even the great empires like Ashoka's Mauryan dynasty or Akbar's Mughal rule were rare exceptions in a long history of division. When they faded, the subcontinent slipped back into the comfort of decentralization. And this right here is the contradiction at the heart of Indian history. Geography demands unity, but culture often resists it. And that's why India was not able to build the same imperial momentum that China did. It kept starting and stopping, uniting and splintering across the centuries. Because every unifying force, every king or empire had to wrestle not just with armies, but with ideas, languages, loyalties, and regional pride that refused to vanish. Even today, in the heart of modern India, echoes of this tension remain. Think about it. Every state has its own language. Regional parties dominate politics. Local identities often outweigh national ones. What we see now is not new. It's centuries in the making. The truth is, India's greatest geopolitical challenge has never been just about defending its borders. It's about building something cohesive inside them. And when you understand that, you realize why India, despite its immense potential, has always had to fight harder than most, not just to defend itself, but to hold itself together. When the British finally left in 1947, they did not just draw borders, they tore through centuries of history with a red pencil soaked in blood. India was partitioned, but with that came Pakistan, not as a cultural offshoot, but as a strategic counterweight. And this is where India's geographical dilemma took a dark new turn, because Pakistan was not just a random breakaway. It was a nation specifically created to deny India full control over the subcontinent. Remember, New Delhi is closer to the Pakistani border than to many parts of southern India. That is not just a cartographic detail, it's a perpetual security headache. This is not just about lost territory, it's about psychological fragmentation. A wound in the idea of what a unified India could have been. But the danger did not stop at the western border. Just look slightly north and you will see the Afghanistan puzzle. A land that was never truly tamed, not by the British, not by the Soviets, not even by America. Kaplan points out that Afghanistan is less a country and more a geographical funnel. A rugged tribal corridor of power vacuums, chaos, and spillover violence. Historically, whoever controls Afghanistan bleeds into Pakistan. And when Pakistan is unstable, India shakes. From terror training camps to ISI-backed insurgencies, the path from Kabul to Kashmir is shorter than you think. Not just geographically, but ideologically. In a way, India is stuck between two fires. To the west, a hostile Pakistan with a nuclear arsenal and a permanent grievance. Just beyond, a crumbling Afghanistan that acts like a magnet for radicalism. Kaplan calls it out directly. India will never have stability in Kashmir unless Pakistan has stability, and Pakistan will never have stability unless Afghanistan does. Let that sink in. India's ability to secure its own borders depends on two failed states outside of them. And that's the strategic nightmare. No amount of troop deployment in Kashmir, no number of peace talks with Pakistan can fully fix this, because the geography is cursed with a domino effect of instability. Even if one front comes down, the other flares up, and that's the modern truth about India's dilemma. Its greatest threats don't just lie within. They flow in from across borders, born from the very geographical realities that history handed it. If India's western frontier bleeds, its northern frontier stares back in silence, cold, calm and dangerous. Because there is one force that geography did not bless India with: natural separation from China. Yes, the Himalayas rise like a majestic wall, but what they divide in altitude, they connect in anxiety. Let's break this down. The Himalayan arc may appear impenetrable, but it's littered with strategic passes, high altitude valleys, and ancient trade routes that make confrontation not just possible but inevitable. And perched on the other side of this icy curtain is a superpower with a plan: China. Unlike Pakistan's reactive hostility, China's strategy is slow, deliberate, and far more complex. It's not about bullets, it's about borders, rivers, maps, and muscle. Kaplan puts it plainly: in the Himalayas, borders are not lines, they are approximations, waiting to be contested. Take Aksai Chin for example, a frozen desert in the high Himalayas. To India, it's part of Ladakh. To China, it's part of Xinjiang. To the soldiers posted there, it's a place where the air is thin, the roads are thinner, and war can break out with a misplaced footprint. But it's not just Aksai Chin. Arunachal Pradesh in the east, what India calls the land of rising sun, is what China calls southern Tibet. This is not just about naming disputes. This is about a country that's mastered the art of salami slicing, which is grabbing small chunks of territory slowly, subtly, and permanently. And while India builds roads, outposts to defend the frontier, China builds entire highways, military runways, and surveillance systems right next to them. The 2020 Galwan clash was not an accident. It was the result of years of cartographic aggression, border patrol games, and strategic muscle flexing. Indian and Chinese soldiers fought with medieval weapons, nail-studded clubs and stones, on icy ridges at 14,000 feet in the 21st century. Let that sink in. But behind that primitive clash is a very modern problem. China has access to the Tibetan plateau, flatter, better for infrastructure and troop mobilization. But India is stuck on the southern slopes, forced to fight uphill, both literally and logistically. It's like playing chess with your king half buried in snow. And yet India cannot afford to look away, because this is not just a border dispute. It's about control over water sources, future road networks, and psychological dominance. China already occupies Aksai Chin. It already threatens Arunachal. It already tests India's resolve in Doklam and Demchok. So here's the deeper truth. India's greatest mountains are no longer just natural defenses. They are now theatres of strategic competition, icy, treacherous, and packed with symbolism. Where geography once protected India, now it haunts it in the shadow of a dragon. If land defines the shape of India's fears, then water defines the scale of its future. Because while India is boxed in by mountains and rivals on the land, it opens up gloriously to the Indian Ocean. This ocean is not just a name, it's a stage, a maritime highway that connects Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. A passageway for 80% of global oil trade, 70% of global container traffic, and more than half of India's strategic identity. But here's a twist. Just as India starts to realize the power of the ocean, so does China. Behold the string of pearls strategy. From Gwadar in Pakistan to Hambantota in Sri Lanka, from Chittagong in Bangladesh to ports in Myanmar, China is encircling the Indian Ocean with strategic ports, economic deals, and naval access points. It's not a fleet, it's a geopolitical necklace tightening around India's neck. Now zoom out even more. Remember the theory we touched on earlier, the rimland? No? Coined by Nicholas Spikeman, the rimland is the coastal periphery of Eurasia, where in it is the zone of maximum tension and opportunity. India is the rimland power writ large. Why? Because India does not sit at the center of Eurasia. It sits on its edge, where empires collided, where commerce flows, and where the great game never ends. To the west, Iran, Pakistan and Afghanistan. To the north, China and the Himalayas. To the east, Bangladesh, Myanmar and Southeast Asia. And all around its southern arc, the Indian Ocean. This is not just a map, it's a choke point of civilizations. India is not a great power because of its economy, not yet. It is not a great power because of its military, not fully. But it can become one because of where it sits. India looms as the ultimate pivot state. Its geography is not its enemy. It's a test. A test of whether India can transform its exposure into outreach, its neighbors into networks, its coastline into command. Because at the heart of Eurasia, every empire wants reach. But at the rim of Eurasia, India already has it. The question now is, will it act or just react? In this way, geography plays its final trick. It separates India from itself, from the empires it once had, from the cultural unity it once claimed, from the geopolitical command it once projected. Became the India's geographical dilemma. It's not just about land, it's about psychological trauma of having land that once extended farther, united more and defended better. And so India stands today with three identities: a civilizational power with deep roots, a strategic actor with modern ambitions, and a geopolitical puzzle still solving itself. In the end, geography does not lie, it does not change, but nations can rise when they learn to read it not just as a boundary but as a blueprint. Because conflict is inevitable, but context decides who wins. Thank you and bye.